I needed.
Read it out loud.
I'm having mine.
Okay, sounds good. Well, we will close this portion of the meeting. And then I call the Pittsburg City Commission meeting this evening to order. Would you please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated. Now have,
What's that? Oh, we haven't.
oh, we get ahead of ourselves.
I get something ready real quick then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only patriotic.
Mm-hmm.
It's cold over here again.
It is.
I'm glad I wore a wool jacket. I thought maybe it was a little too heavy for now, but I thought, you know, I think I made the right decision.
How do
I already had it up.
You're ready. Do we need to do the pledge again, or are we?
no.
Okay, let's move forward. That's all right. Once is good. Okay. So we're ready for public input. So if you are here,
We have invocation, don't we?
oh, well, I was going to do that as part of
Oh.
public input, if that's all right.
Sure.
If there is anyone here for public input, now would be the time to come forward. If you'll come up and state your name and your concerns, and if you want to come on up, that'd be great.
I'm Pastor Tom Wehrman. I'm with the Pittsburgh Ministerial Association. To say an invocation?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Take it away.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, in our Savior's name, we give thanks to you for your continued blessings upon this community. And we ask for the elected leaders of our city, your spirit of wisdom, humility, courage, and peace, that they may promote the common good, hear the voices of all who reside in our community, and use their authority to serve faithfully. For to you belongs the glory and dominion, now and forever. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Is there anyone else here for public opinion time? Not, we'll close public input and move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda for this evening?
C.
Item C. I'd like to remove item B.
I like item D.
Item D, so that's everything except for the appropriations. Does anyone want to look at the appropriations in more detail?
Fine with that.
Okay. If not, I will look for a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of items B, C, and D.
Go ahead.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote.
Chenoweth? Aye. Johnson?
Aye.
Munsell?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
All right. So on item B, which reads, which I'll read out, approval of the recommendation of the Economic Development Advisory Committee, the EDAC, to inject $15,000 for the purchase of materials to construct a raised long jump / triple jump runway at Pittsburg State University Plaster Center, with Pittsburg State University being responsible for the construction and installation of the runway. Blake, I wonder if you could maybe talk a little bit about that?
Sure. That modification is necessary. Pittsburgh State identified that they could expand the seating in the Plaster Center, but they would need to make that modification, and the Economic Development Advisory Committee felt that that was a good use of economic development funds because that allows even more people to attend events at the Plaster Center. So that's theoretically more people in our hotels and our restaurants, spending money in our community. So the agreement that the city, if approved by you tonight, the agreement would be that the city's funds would be used to purchase the materials for that raised runway, but that Pittsburg State University would be responsible for the construction and installation. But the goal of the EDAC was to increase the seating at the Plaster Center, which would enable more people to attend events in there.
Sure. Okay. Any other questions regarding item B? If not, I will move to approve.
I'll second it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item C, approval of staff recommendation to recognize the April 20th and August 24th, 2018 art walks as community events and to approve the blocking of Broadway from the north side of 4th Street to the south side of 7th Streets from 3:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. during the events.
Basically, the reason I brought this out was because I was curious if, I noticed in the paper they've extended the timeline to apply to display your works here. Are they having an issue with this, getting enough people to participate?
Kim Vogel, unfortunately, is not here today. She's the one that takes those applications and puts that together. I do not know if there's been an issue on that or how many that they do have.
If there's no other questions, I move to approve.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item D, approval of ordinance number G-1279, creating section 18-103 of the Pittsburg City Code, providing the protection of public health and safety and property by requiring electric meters to be disconnected by local utility company employees or qualified city personnel only, and electric meters to be reconnected by the utility company after inspection and approval by the City Building Services Department, and authorize the mayor to sign the ordinance on behalf of the city.
I just had a couple questions, Cameron. Licensed electricians would not be qualified to do that.
Not through this ordinance, no.
All right, who's the city personnel that somebody would have to contact? You or who's qualified?
Well, for the, that primarily is, for example, when you've got a house fire. The
Oh, yeah, fire department, I know
would
that.
come out there and that's what that line there is primarily for, is for that emergency disconnection.
So during the day, if it's not a house fire, they could get a hold of Westar, they could come out if they needed that meter pulled.
Correct.
All right,
Yes.
that's no further questions. I move to approve.
Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Consider the following. Insurance brokerage service. Staff will provide a verbal recommendation regarding the selection of an insurance agent/broker to market and provide competitive quotations on a variety of property and liability coverage, as well as provide an in-depth professional services, including but not limited to risk management consulting, claims management, loss control services, auto liability, auto physical damage, general and professional liability, and public officials' liability losses.
Mayor, City Commissioners, so from time to time, we go out and seek services, especially on any arrangement we have with a current vendor, that we have options for other vendors. You know, it's important that we go out and give people a chance to participate. And we published an RFP probably a month ago to hire an insurance agent/broker for the upcoming year. The upcoming year starts April 1st. Today, we're fortunate to have 3 businesses, and I think they're all here today, in our community that provide this service, so it is actually very competitive. All 3 of those businesses responded to the RFP. We had each of them in. Basically, we had a committee of 5 people at the city rate each of the RFPs, the actual physical document, and then we gave them a chance to, I think it was maybe 30 minutes to, give some kind of idea of who they are, introductions, answer any of the questions, and I think that went pretty well. I wasn't involved in that on purpose. We let some other people run through that. We did get a recommendation back. We checked a reference of each one of them. At this point, the recommendation from staff is to go with Wood Jewelry Insurance Agent. We obviously have, I have considerable notes from each of the agents that presented to us, but I didn't provide those with you because some of those are specific and I didn't think it was appropriate, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have. We have several people that were on the committee here in the room today that can speak more to the actual presentations if that's what you want to get into, but it's an annual contract and we do have to have our insurance renewed by April 1st, so this would be an important milestone in getting that done because we would have to turn right around and then go out and actually find the provider. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a couple. The length of this contract is just for a year?
Yes.
Our past company that provided the service for us, have we had any issue with that company in their fulfilling the services?
No, I
From
think
the
in
cities?
general, when I got here, we actually had some, I kind of challenged that company to go above and beyond, and they really did a great job with finding us another company that would insure us. The rates that we had were going up increasingly to the point that it was going to be a challenge to keep up with the tax dollars that we had available. So, no, I think in general, we're a busy little community. We have $40 million and it feels like 300 parks, and somebody's always falling off of a curb or flinging off of a swing. There's always something out there where insurance is a big deal, and Tammy can probably speak more to the individual claims, but I don't think there was anything that drove us to bid it out, if that's what you're getting at. Obviously, there were differences of why that wasn't the recommended agent going forward. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
If you could answer this, what made Woods Doolahary stand out over the other two?
I think specifically, they had a very good written presentation. They had a very good verbal, I don't want to call it a presentation, but that's really what it was. They made themselves available. They did very good in answering all the questions. In the end, it probably came down to experience. There's a little more, there's a few more layers right now. One of the other companies was just getting established, and so I think the concern there was for a city with 20,000 residents and $45 million of assets on the line or more, what's the level of service we were going to get? And I think they really probably stood out as the one that had the best chance of providing us the service that we needed right now.
What about the cost difference between the three units? Was there
You know,
much of it
Thankful.
negligible? Or
They all came in right at the same, nobody seemed to be, above the other ones. It was pretty much a flat fee, and it's based really on the size of our policy, which obviously the size of our policy would be applicable to any one of them. So they were all great on price. I guess if there's something that's a drawback, it's the fact that we can't split it up and give each of them a third, because we're lucky to have these companies in town. I think they're going to be in town for a long time. They have been, and they all, but Chuck, it was probably service, the confidence that we would get the service that we needed.
The prior company, how long a relationship did the city have with them?
As long as anybody can remember, I think is, I've only been here 6 years, but I was told they've always been I'm looking at Tammy because she's been here a lot longer than I have, but I don't have an exact number.
So they had experience in service, but you chose another company.
Correct.
And the committee that evaluated these three was made up of 5 of our employees,
Correct.
5 city employees from different departments, basically.
Yes.
And they were all, what level of employees, would you say? Mid-level?
There's a director, there's our procurement officer. So, they weren't, they were upper level.
Okay.
I guess without
Okay.
going through them. There was, yeah.
Was the company that we have now one of the bidding
Oh,
companies?
absolutely, yeah. Ryan Insurance is, like I said, there was no dogs in this show. This is strictly an evaluation of where the city's heading, what our challenges are. And since price was really not an issue, it came down to where did we think we could get the maximum level of service that we needed right now.
There are no other questions. I will move to approve.
Oh, what do you do when you don't know?
You take your time.
What would you,
Ask more questions.
Don't
What would
rush,
you-
don't rush to a decision, yeah, don't rush to a decision.
Sarah, let me
Yeah.
ask you, what would you propose? Like, what are you
Well,
missing?
I just don't know if a better ability to present in an older age necessarily are reasons to award something to someone when price is pretty comparable. I don't think just because someone's been around longer, that means that they're better. And if we're pretty happy with the company that we have and we have no complaints, I'm kind of seeing a hard time of why don't we just keep doing what we know is good. I don't know. I don't know anything about insurance. I wasn't in the meeting.
I am kind of on board with Sarah for half of it. That's better than none. But, I think anytime you deal with anything like insurance, or any kind of a project like this, the more times you do it, the more you are able to see nuances that fit the program. And that's, that's just part of starting the business. But what I do agree with you on is we've used Ryan's for a number of years, and that's particularly why I asked the question if we were having an issue with their service. We're not hearing that. So I would propose that we stay with Ryan's myself.
I think I would second that.
I would like to add that we've had a relationship with Ryan's for a number of years. They've been both reliable and dependable. And it sounds like last year, I thought you said, Darren, we asked them to step up and do more. And I think as the years go by, if we ask them for whatever our needs would be, they would be able to fill them. So I would agree with Patrick and Sarah and stay with what we know and what we've had.
Well, I guess before I register your motion, Patrick, I'd like to go with, express where I'm at. So I guess I get what you're saying, that why change something if it's not broken, kind of thing. I guess as an elected official for the city, part of my gut says that I need to trust the process, that there are other people tasked with looking at this who are not me, and to second guess the work that they've done, or to kind of negate it and say, all this that you put into it doesn't really matter. I know better than you. I don't know, that kind of rankles me a little bit, and I'm not super comfortable with that.
Well, I
understand
certainly was
that.
not saying
I
that.
understand that.
Meaning to imply that, but can you give us what are some more specific reasons other than they spoke better and
I
they've
can
been
go as
around
deep as
longer?
you want to go. Okay, let me tell you this, this is a public meeting, okay, and all of these are businesses that work in this community. So I'm gonna be very careful in going into the details, when it may put one of the company's, image, when their number one goal is to sell their company on service. And when I say there are, so you tell, do I need to go further? It sounds like I need to go a little further, so I'm gonna go a little further, okay? We are a city government, okay? We provide water and sewer and police and fire and economic development and parks and recreation and a few other things that we get drug into from time to time that we don't mind doing. We are not an insurance company, okay? If we are asked, and so what we expect from our insurance companies, and there's a reason we're no longer with Blue Cross and Blue Shield, we expect a certain level of service. We expect a certain level of leadership from our brokers. We expect to not be left on our own to determine what is the best policy, what is the best coverage, what we need to do to best protect our citizens. When we hire a broker, we expect our broker to lead us into where are we in the cyber world? What are the cyber threats that are out there? What are the violent incident threats that are out there? What are our assets that need to be covered? Where are we on litigation? When we find ourselves in a situation where we're being tasked to do more than I think we should, we are going to look for options. And if we find an option that we think has a level of service, I never said we had issues. Issues to me are negatives, okay? I don't have any positive issues with my wife. I love my wife. We don't have any issues because an issue is a negative. I don't think negative about Ryan Insurance. I'm thankful that they've worked with us. When I said they worked hard with us to save money, that was 6 years ago, the first year I got here. It wasn't last year.
Well, my mistake.
But a lot, well, I wasn't clear when I said it, but it was my first year, not a year ago. Things have changed. We are a very busy city. We have a ton of things going on. As you can tell, we've tried not to add employees, but we do not have the professionalism and the expertise or the time to become experts in the property and liability insurance and risk mitigation. And so we have definitely seen a drop off in the amount of time that has been spent with our city by our current agent. That is a concern, and when we look at the company, Ray is a fantastic agent, but Ray is a person. And as we always say, if Ray gets hit by a bus, who's gonna come save the city? If the city gets hit by a tornado, I don't need an agent to show up at 2 in the morning and tell me that it's okay, the house is gonna come back. I need an agency that is going to break in and help this city do what it needs to do. So we saw it like that. That's not a knock on Ray. That is strictly the facts as they were judged by the committee and as they were shared back with me. And we thought we need a leader. We need somebody to help us make sure that we're properly insured, not tell us when our insurance is up and that we need to renew. And that's a very long answer to a hard question to answer.
I'm going to address Jeremy's concern, and that is not taking this committee's advice. We asked the committee for direction. I don't think that means we have to follow it. I think that the 5 of us sitting up here, the buck stops here, and we take their advice, their information, and make our decision from that. And I think that's only appropriate. We do the same thing with EDAC or any other committees. So I don't think that's a slap at their face or telling them that we don't appreciate their service or their energy expended on this. And I don't think they should feel like it is. But the 5 of us sit up here, and it, for good or bad, it rests on us, and we have to make that decision.
And we appreciate that it's a difficult decision. I mean, and we'll go anyway. I mean, I'm just thankful that we're local. We got 3 companies that are here. They all have
That is good.
employees. They're all great people, and they've all given their best effort to try to get the business, so.
And I understand your issue, Darren, that we want to be in business with someone who is actively involved with us. And not only do we want to be able to send them a check, we need to have their upfront feedback about what's going on and where we need to be doing something different, and all of this kind of advice, information that we get from someone who is educated in that field as opposed to us.
We need to be led a little bit. We need to lean on somebody's expertise and help us make sure that we're protecting the citizens and the assets that they've paid for.
Well, if there's no further discussion, I will take a motion one way or the other on this item.
I'll make a motion, we stay with Ray Ryan Insurance.
I second.
Right, it has been moved and seconded to go with Ryan Insurance. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Aye. Motion passes.
Thanks.
And
I didn't answer.
Commissioner Chetowith abstaining.
So that was 2-1.
Two.
Okay.
So how does that work out?
That usually
Or
goes
just
with
give me
a
2 more
affirmative
seconds to
vote.
think about
I think she's still thinking.
it. Yeah,
Can we do a roll call vote and come to you last?
yes,
Two's good.
yes.
Covers.
Or,
Yeah.
or if you don't need it, it doesn't matter.
You can abstain and it
It's
still
passed.
passes.
Yes.
So
What you
pass.
could do is vote no, and then it doesn't.
Right.
Probably should
So
give
no
her some
pressure.
time to vote.
I am going to, I guess, go with the community's recommendation. It does sound like there is, in fact, whether we want to say it out loud or not, an issue. And so I'm going to stay with the community's recommendation, whoever
So
said
that's a
that.
no.
That's a no.
Okay,
Okay.
so motion fails
So the staff's recommendation would be to table it and bring it back.
Okay.
when we
Then
have
we have
a
5.
tie
There's a
breaking.
reason there's 5 people on this
vote,
board,
yes.
and it's to avoid
Okay.
awkward moments like that. So anyway,
Okay.
Okay,
we will table it. And
this
move
is
on to
how
the next
local
one.
government works sometimes. Not often, but sometimes.
That's how it should.
All right, moving on to item B, with item A being tabled for our next meeting. Item B, Pittsburg State University Forgivable Loan, Block 22. The Economic Development Advisory Committee, EDAC, is recommending approval of the request submitted by Pittsburg State University for a loan in the amount of $300,000 to cover build-out costs for the commercial space in the Commerce Building, formerly Kroll's, as part of the Block 22 project, with the loan to be forgiven over a 5-year period at $60,000 per year from 2019 to 2023, with the stipulation that the entire $300,000 must be spent on permanent fixed improvements, that all tenants in the former Commerce/Baxter buildings be sales tax producing businesses, and that the occupancy of the building must average no less than 65% over the previous 12-month period.
All right, thank you,
Blake.
Mr. Mayor. This is a request that the EDAC considered last week pertaining to the commercial build-out of Block 22. You hear a lot about the residential part. There's a substantial commercial build-out as well. As Sean is going to explain, there are some things that have changed. It's hard to believe Block 22 has really been in the works for over 2 years now, and with projects that big, things do change and come up and new needs arise. The EDAC was concerned that if this did not happen, that the commercial space, which is a big component of Block 22 and being able to not only house students, but also be able to house businesses downtown as well. They were worried that that might be threatened, so they felt that it was an appropriate use of economic development funds to help support the commercial build-out of the Block 22 space. But to give a little bit more background, I'll ask Sean to come up and talk about the slides that are up.
Very much, Blake. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, good to see you yet again. As Blake indicated, in a project like this, it is difficult to fathom that we've been at this almost 3 years. But when you're renovating buildings that have been standing for over 100 years, I guess it should be no surprise that that might be challenging. Specifically, what I want to address today and what we addressed to the EDAC on last Wednesday was I want to allay any concerns that the changes that have occurred have had to do with misplanning or that we're over budget. That is not the case. What has happened is that, and some of you may recall, because I know that some of you have been more involved than others, but this process started probably in the fall, maybe around August of 2015. The first meeting wherein the university was involved was in October of 2015, when Darren called and asked if we would consider a proposition from the city on how we might play a role in restoring and saving the first four commercial buildings in Pittsburgh at the corner of 4th and Broadway. The city really has been the leader on this, and I want to give a lot of credit to Becky Gray and Darren and Jay and the leadership that you all here at the commission have provided in investing the first $1.5 million to get this off the ground before the university was even committed to the project. That took vision and foresight, and I want to congratulate you on that, because we are about to accomplish something really great. And those of you who were there today to meet the Board of Regents, appreciate that, and I think you saw the level of excitement. This may be one of the most exciting projects, obviously not only in Pittsburgh, but in the state of Kansas with regard to an institution. When the developer had sufficient go-ahead to start securing option contracts on each of the buildings after the city had committed the $1.5 million, one of the last that that they were able to secure was in the Commerce and Baxter buildings. Most people know it as Kroll's, because for generations that's what occupied the first floor. That option contract initially, when it was secured, it granted the former tenants, the Krolls, the right to remain there and to remain there for at least 5 more years with an option for an additional 5 after that. So by the time that we got to a position after the 4 to 6 months that we studied whether or not this was something that we could do, by that, it was around between April and May of 2016 when we made the decision, yeah, we're going to go ahead and go forward. We're going to try to secure the appropriate approvals from the state, et cetera. Our understanding was that this project did not include renovation of the 10,000 or so square feet on the first floor of the Commerce and Baxter buildings, which are depicted here. There's about 6,200 square feet in the front portion of that, which most people will call as Kroll's, and in the back there's about 2,000 square feet that also could be available for commercial entities. So when we signed on to this project, we didn't anticipate we were going to be renovating that space, because our understanding was that Kroll's was going to remain in that space and that they would actually be a rent-paying tenant for at least 5 years. Now, that doesn't mean that that would have been the most ideal situation. I think obviously having 90 of the 100,000 square feet renovated and 10 not wouldn't have been ideal, but it was a condition of the option contract, which was secured by the developer. In the process, after we had agreed to be part of this and be the anchor tenant and to take on whatever debt was going to be there, in this case we're taking on about $5.5 million in debt in addition to the $1.2 to $1.7 million we're going to be raising from private giving. It became clear that Kroll's decided they wanted to go ahead and shutter. They had sold to Walgreens, as you all know, and then decided to shut the business down and to leave the space open. So that now presents us with the challenge of filling that space in a way that is commensurate with the development and with helping to forward downtown. We then went to work on marketing this space and tried very hard to find business entities that would be willing to come in and pay the level of rent that we would need them to pay, plus building out the commercial space consistent with the rest of the facilities. It was because of the fact that right now our property values in Pittsburgh are still rather low from a commercial standpoint. Most businesses are not wanting to invest the level of dollars, the $300,000 in total that would have to be to renovate this space, because they could buy another building and have the entire building have ownership or build a new building. We have identified two businesses and possibly 3 that we have letters of intent with 2 right now that signed letters of intent that they would occupy this space, 2 food-related businesses, on the contingent basis that we secure the funding necessary for the commercial build-out. Let's go to the next slide here. I guess here's the details on the funding request and some of the economic impact. This is exclusive of everything on the east side, so we're not including the Opera House Hotel and National Bank buildings. Of course, in the Opera House Hotel, it will include Root Coffee House with a substantial expansion of their existing business. That's not included in these figures. This is actually just those who we have LOIs that would be new businesses. One is a local, because of the terms of LOI, and this being a public meeting, I can't really divulge the exact businesses right now. One is but I can give you some parameters. One is a restaurant business that is actually based in LA right now, but that the owner is a Pittsburgh State University graduate. When he heard that we were going to be doing this, he wanted to bring a concept to downtown Pittsburgh that I think is going to be very exciting and be something that is going to enlarge the pie, not just eat up everybody else. This is going to bring people to our community, I'm very confident of. And the second is a local entrepreneur with a really great concept for the space. There's the possibility that the California restaurateur who had at one point 6 locations in Los Angeles as well as 3 in Cabo. They are doing some Midwest expansion as well as expansion into Philadelphia and New York. They actually, depending on how we end up configuring this, they could actually add a second concept, which would mean we could have up to 3, which would push these numbers up. This is on the conservative side. We're looking at, with those 2 businesses, with your approval this evening, we'll be able to go forward and secure leases. One would be actually a 20-year, well, 18-year lease technically, because that's as long as our lease is with the developer right now, but 18 years. The second would be a 5-year with 5-year options. You see there what we're projecting that will have from an impact standpoint. Again, this is pretty conservative, but those businesses are bringing in their own investment capital from the standpoint of FF&E, all of the kitchen equipment, all of those things. So this is for infrastructure build out that would be permanent and long lasting and permanent, I guess are the same thing, would be permanent, so that if either of those 2 entities were to vacate, we would have a space that would be more readily commercially rentable or leasable if they were to depart. Our estimate, you see here, is 2 to 3 new businesses. We're estimating about 55 FTEs. Obviously, because these are restaurant-based, there's going to be a number of part-times, but if you just do the FTE count on that, we're estimating about 55 plus. Estimated on the low end at $2.25 million in new annual revenue that is not currently being produced here and right there at the corner of 4th and Broadway. As the committee has recommended, $300,000 forgivable loan over 5 years, so long as we hit those economic development metrics as articulated by Blake. So, questions?
I move to approve.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Thought
no,
we were-
I'll second,
I thought
yeah.
we were done.
No, that's very impressive, Sean. Thank you for
Yes,
sharing that.
very.
Well, thank you very much.
So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of approval, say aye.
Whoa,
Or did
Can I have a question?
you, oh, sorry.
yeah.
Please, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I've had a lot of calls on this.
Okay.
And so the city put in 1.5 million. And that's forgivable. You don't have to pay that back. Also, the city's gonna provide shuttle service at $15,000 a year for 18 years or longer.
Hopefully longer.
So that's 18 years, that's 270,000 you don't have to pay back. So that's 570 on top of the 1.5 million. And the calls I was getting was, the people think we need to stop putting that much money into the project. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that, some time back, we talked about getting away from the forgivable loans, didn't we, Blake? And,
There was discussion around that. We were doing a lot more of them back at that time.
so I would be in favor of a repayable loan of 300,000. Just my thoughts. So
I think it's also important to point out that kind of a sweet spot that the EDAC has tried to come in with the incentive packages is around 10% to make sure that the city's investment is roughly 10% of a total project value. And even with this additional $300,000, that just brings it up to the 10% as shown on the slide right here, because overall Block 22 is now about an $18 million project. Started out as 15, now it's up to 18. So even bringing the city's investment up to $1.8 million, we're still within that range of 10% of the total project value. And I like Jay saying that anytime you can leverage $1 of public funds and get $9 back in private money to match that, that could be a good investment for the city. But I just wanted to make sure that was brought out as well.
I have 2 questions. One, I know a part of this, the parameters of this is that you need to keep 65% occupancy. If that doesn't happen, what happens?
They would pay back that year's loan installment. So basically, this would be forgiven over 5 years at $60,000 a year. So beginning September 1st of January of 2019, PSU will provide verification that they averaged 65%, which is 2 of the 3 spaces. And if they don't hit that mark or any of the other marks, they would repay $60,000.
My second question is, Sean, you just addressed the east side of Broadway. Are we going to be seeing you again for more funds for the east side?
No, Commissioner, you're not. We have a gap of approximately $250,000 on the east side, but we are committed to privately fundraising those dollars. In addition to over $1.2 million we've already privately fundraised. It actually may be as much as $500,000, but we're committed to figuring that out. And I'm confident that we're going to. We've identified some potential there, including the possibility of a federal EDA grant that we're working on right now for public works and infrastructure. You will not be seeing us again on the east side. And I should mention on the east side, in addition to Root Coffee House, we have commitments for 5 businesses that will occupy the co-working space on that side, which are for-profit entities that are supportive of that entrepreneurial and business support ecosystem that we're trying to build in that community there.
I might address just one more thing, Chuck, and this is to your constituents that you've heard from. And that is, these buildings are being saved, and we're not going to have to tear them down at a big cost. And I think that's something that people out there really need to put into their thought process, is that not only are we generating revenue and tax dollars by keeping the downtown viable, we're saving money on that end of the thing also, by chance.
And I also, I appreciate where you're coming from, Commissioner Munsell, and where your constituents' calls are coming from. One thing I do want to make it clear, though, is the standpoint of the university is not relying upon the city to fund this entire thing. We also have substantial skin in this game. In addition, I mean, apart from having to own, basically, operate and manage the facility, which obviously has a cost. I don't have that off the top of my head. When I think about the number of my team members who are going to be there, as well as all the maintenance and those sorts of things, and our housing operations. But just from the standpoint of the total $18 million construction costs, if you combine what we're going to be taking on from the standpoint of a long-term note, in addition to those monies that we're fundraising for, we are responsible for over $7 million of the $18 million project. Now, we've been fortunate enough to identify between $9 and $10 million in tax credit programs between New Market and historic state and federal tax credit programs that just helped to offset. And without those, probably this project would not actually have been possible. But that is not to diminish the investment that the city has made. Again, the city led on this. It wouldn't be happening but for the city of Pittsburgh and the progressive mindset that you all have, that the staff has. So I don't want to diminish that, but I also want to make sure it's clear that we have substantial skin in the game of this being successful. And we have put a lot of our reputation on the line for this to work. So believe me, there's a substantial amount of weight on my shoulders, I feel like sometimes. I want to make sure this works and it works for everyone. But I do understand and I respect where you're coming from.
There's weight on our shoulders also.
There's weight on everybody's shoulders.
And there's plenty to go around, plenty of weight to go around.
Plenty to go around.
My weight's usually around the middle, Patrick. I don't have that much.
Mine too, unfortunately.
If there's no further discussion, Sarah, would you like to?
Yes, I'm moved to approve.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Blake. Item C, KDOT grant agreement for the Atkinson Municipal Airport partial parallel taxiway at the approach end of runway 16. Consider staff request to accept a grant in the amount of $350,000 from the Kansas Department of Transportation to construct the partial parallel taxiway to connect the newly constructed turnaround at the end of runway 16-34 with the turnaround in place prior to the extension. Cameron.
Thank you. This project has been a long time coming. Originally, this partial taxiway was going to be constructed when we did the extension onto the runway. We've gotten both KDOT as well as FAA grants at that time to design them as one. Fortunately for us, FAA funds became available sooner. KDOT funds were not there to match, so we went ahead with the extension. Timing-wise, I don't think could have hit any better, because if we'd waited another year, I don't believe those funds would have been available, and we'd still be waiting today to get that done. KDOT, as much as we like to kind of wrinkle our nose at them, they've worked up with us very well on trying to follow through with the construction of this. Initially, when we looked at this project, it was going to be a $600,000 project. A portion of it was considered to be in a floodplain. I'll show you this other. You can see here, this is the extension that was just done here. The parallel taxiway will tie around those two turnarounds there, the one prior to and then one after the construction. This little area here, someone on a map with the Corps of Engineers said that that was a wetland. And so after, it probably took us a good year of wrangling with them in order to get them to reevaluate and deem that that was not a wetland. And so in that, we're able to reduce the cost, is I believe about $150,000 to mitigate that wetland if it had been. So in that, we brought the total project down. Right now, the estimate's about $428,000, and that's construction and construction engineering in it. KDOT was able to come up with $350,000. So if it comes in as estimated right now, the city would spend $78,000 in order to capture that $350,000. Most of the estimates that we've had on the projects have been 10 to 20% below the estimate. If that's the case, we'll probably come in about that 90-10 split, about $35,000 for our match. But those are the numbers as we have them now. And would like to ask that we get approval so we can go ahead and finish this project that's been a long way in the coming.
If there are no questions, I move to approve.
I have a question. This turnaround, it's going to go from just those two bump outs, it's not going all the way back to the main terminal area?
Correct.
And you're right, this has been on the city's agenda for a long time, ever since I've sat up here. That's it.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Mayor, Commissioners.
Thank you, Cameron.
Good job, Cameron.
Item D, declaration of surplus equipment and request to enter into lease/purchase agreement. Approval of the Parks and Recreation Department's request to have various equipment declared as surplus property to be used for trade-in value for new equipment to be purchased through a lease/purchase agreement, and to enter into a 5-year lease/purchase agreement with the financial institution selected to best meet the needs of the city. Staff will provide a verbal presentation. Matt.
Good evening. This is for a combination of mowers for the golf course, Parks and Rec, and the cemetery. The utilization of these funds, we're utilize state contracts to purchase that, but what we've done is we've went out for the leasing locally to finance those. And so what you have before is we took bids this afternoon, and we're recommending the low to Community National Bank at 2.95% for an interest rate on the 5-year lease for those mowers. We've done Community National. We're asking for permission to go ahead and enter into contracts and sign with behalf of the mayor for that. So, and we've entered into, I think we currently hold the dump truck and something else. Fire equipment with Community National. So, questions?
If there's no discussion, I move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Matt. Non-agenda reports and requests. The bi-monthly budget review. Director of Finance Jamie Clarkson will provide the February 28th, 2018 bi-monthly budget review.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. If you'll bear with me for a second, I Need to load my thumb drive.
It's a lot easier.
Well, it's not gonna work with me tonight. This is the February 2018 bi-monthly budget report. It's my first budget recap for the fiscal year 2018. As in the past, the revenues on the left are hopefully green, and the expenditures on the right are hopefully green as far as actual to budget numbers. The far left has the carryover cash from last year. So we started 2018 with $12.6 million total. 2018, we're at $14.7 million in the bank. 2 months represents about 16% of the year. As of this time, I have no issues with any of the funds. We've had some debt payments in the utility system. That's why the revenues are under expenditures for that period, but we're still within the budget, so it's kind of skewed. The general fund started with $4.3 million. At this period, it had almost $6 million in the bank. The reason that's so large is because we get our first tax distribution, property tax distribution from the county in January, which is our largest tax distribution of the year. A couple of notable items. Sales tax for the first 2 months of this year compared to the first 2 months of last year are up 1%. Not quite as large a gains as we had last year, but it's still a positive number, which is good. Got to remember that we had 5% growth last year, and this is 1% on top of that. So, gaming revenues so far to date, since its inception back in April of 2017, we're averaging $26,500 a month in gaming revenues. So the casino's doing really well, which is good news for everybody.
Jamie, didn't you send out an email saying that they recently had their best month
Yeah, that
ever?
would have been the one I just collected this month. It was $30,000 in March for the gaming revenues, which is actually for February. Everything's always a month behind on the casino revenue, but it's growing. It started out a little bit lower, and in the last 3 or 4 months, it's been growing. So that's a good sign. Does anybody have any questions on anything of this?
I think so. It all looks very good. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I got one more item if you'll bear with me.
Absolutely.
Just a little news release. I wanted to put it on TV. On March 21st, our utility department will be doing a utility software upgrade with our Encode software platform, and it's going to take approximately 4 hours, and we have to do it during working hours. It's going to be from 8 a.m. in the morning till 12 at noon, so we will be unable to look up payments or take payments or look up information on customers until after that's completed for those 4 hours. But what this is going to do, it's going to allow us to have an enhanced payment method going forward. Like customers now can pay in person or they can pay online. This is going to add another feature where they can pay over the phone 24 hours a day, where they don't have to talk to an individual. If they just want to call in and they can punch in their account and use their credit card, it'll process their payment that way as well. So that's going to be another convenience for our customers.
Any kind of a notification going out with the water bills or anything to alert the customers?
Yes. Well, I say that. It's going to be, I think, Sarah is putting it in the newspaper tomorrow, or this week, and it's gonna be on Twitter and Facebook.
But nothing in the, okay.
General consensus was that when you get your bill, if it's a recurring bill, you just look at the total and write a check, and so we're trying to do a better, that's one reason he's here, is whatever we stick in the bills, it just seems to become litter in the trash, so we're trying to go, okay, let's take another approach, but yeah, that's, our whole point is, how can we possibly let people know that 4 hours? We don't wanna come in and going, what, I can't do my business, so, great question, but we're trying to figure it out.
Great question.
It was. Everybody wants to.
Any
stick
other
in the bill.
questions? All right, thank you.
All right, thanks, Jamie. Are there any other non-agenda reports or requests?
I have a request. Last commission meeting, we heard from a fireworks seller about the action we took the meeting before by raising the temporary license fee that put a hardship on a small business. I'm requesting that we look into that action we took and possibly lowering it so we won't run small business off, and just asking what the rest of the commissioners think about this.
I would be open to revisiting that question.
Well, my explanation for the raise is that it is to put us on the same field as other communities our size. And I think it was explained that now it's going, these monies are going to go towards funding the fireworks display, which, you know, I guess that's great.
Yeah, I'm on board with Patrick as well, but whatever the commission
That's 2
would
and
like
2
to.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where's
we'll-
Don when you need it?
I don't want to talk about it right now, but like in the future, like I would.
Yeah, my
You wanna
suggestion would be,
re-propose?
you guys have the information from the staff, you have our recommendation, and at any time you wanna change anything, make a motion, get 3 votes, and away we go. So, I mean, we stand by the recommendation we made for the reasons we made it, but completely understand your desire to reconsider it, and however you wanna, just direct us on what you want us to do.
Any other non-agenda reports or requests? Henry, how does that work?
That's up to you.
The other commissioners are okay with it?
I'm all right with it.
Fine.
Sure. Go ahead, Zach.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
45 seconds.
You're starting the clock.
Clock is ticking.
Time me. Hey, everyone wants to get out of here. Zach Dickey with Next Generation Insurance. I made the plea last or 2 meetings ago to get the opportunity to bid on the city's insurance. I think one thing that we need to make sure we point out, and that we may have not done a very good job of doing that to the panel. We spent about an hour and a half with them trying to convey what our structure is. We are a DBA. We are not Next Generation, just Zach and Brandon. We were domiciled in the city of Pittsburgh. We sold within 5 months to the 6th largest property and casualty firm in the country. Never before has Pittsburgh ever seen that. We have over 1,000 public sector clients with Assured Partners. That means services and information that City of Pittsburgh has never seen. My wife is going into Block 22. You know, we utilized the CIBD, Sean Nacarado actually, Daryl Pulliam at the time, to get our stuff going. Blake Benson helped us out a lot. And in addition to that, even the restaurant that Sean mentioned, I went and helped. I was a part of the large group that met with the restaurant to try and bring that business here to Pittsburgh. I had a very little part, a very small part. But the fact is, that's where the support comes in. I am committed to this town, committed to this city, and if we want to try to attract
young professionals to this area. I would like to see you guys support them. Anything that, any other, we utilize your husbands and your recycling service. Anything else that we can provide to you guys in this process, we'd like to do it. But I think that the services that we can provide are going to be, are going to outpace any of the other respondents. So thanks for the time.
Zach? Any other non-agenda reports or requests? If not, I will take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.